I am at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. It is so historic as they just celebrated 100 years, and today we're going to learn more about the museum in this beautiful glass exhibit. Come on. We are standing in the glass wing at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, and I am with President and CEO Charles Shepard. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Jessica.
How are you?
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. You know, this place is pretty incredible. Glass everywhere. You have to be very careful.
Yeah, very careful.
Walking around, but start off by sharing with us about the museum and just really what people can experience when they come.
Well, people are surprised to learn that the museum's 100 years old.
Yeah.
We're entering our 101st year. We weren't always in this building. We were in different historic homes in town until we could raise enough money and muster the capital to get here and build a good building in 1984. But we have a long history in the community, long history serving the community. And this building, which I expanded once again in 2009, has enabled us to have 9 different gallery spaces and serve more people than we ever have in history.
Yes, and you have been here for 20 years.
I have.
Which, I mean, in that amount of time, you have been able to really put your imprint into the things that you have done here. So what would be the biggest changes or the things that you have done to evolve the place?
Well, I think if you look at internal, I've had a strong role in putting the funding together to keep us going, not only year to year, but in the endowment. And if you also look internally, I've built the collection from 1,000 items to almost 9,000 items and still growing. So those are 2 important things. Externally, the one important thing that means something to me, and I think it means something to the community, is that I had come from the academic world. I wanted to be in the world of people. So we, one-to-one, I did 1,000 interviews my first summer. Tell me what you like about this museum, tell me what you don't like. What do you feel? What don't you feel? And that information told the community I'm serious about listening.
Right.
And it put me in everybody's face.
Yeah.
And we're here because we love you. So what's going on? And that enabled me to build programming and exhibits that would meet the kinds of thoughts that they were sharing with me.
Okay, that's so nice. So stepping in there and talking to people and learning and growing. And so in this exhibit in particular, the Glass Wing, you are on a mission
I am.
to become the glass capital of the world. I joke with you because, I mean, you have made so much progress. So tell us about the glass exhibit in particular that we are standing in.
Well, we're in a series, a trio, if you will, of 3 galleries of major pieces from our collection, arranged chronologically. Glass of this nature, studio glass, studio sculpture glass, existed first in 1963. And so in the first room we do 1963, 70s, up to the 80s, then we move into the 90s and the 2000s, then we move into 2010, 2020, and then we got to expand again.
Yeah, so as people walk through, they're kind of getting a little history lesson of how glass has been used for creativity. I mean, all of these sculptures, they look so unique, and I just look back, I'm looking behind you at this glass piece. How tall is that?
Oh, that's almost 6 feet half.
Wow. And so tell us just a fun fact about any of these pieces that we're looking at.
Well, the start of it was very modest, I have to tell you. In the early 60s, when Harvey Littleton, who was the first person to make studio glass, he was a potter, a ceramicist. And he thought, I wonder if I could melt glass in my kiln for clay. And he did, and he got a little sculpture out of that. And he thought, this is really prettier than clay, and maybe we could refine this. So early on, these things are very modest, you know, and small, okay? Then his dream was, if he could teach this at his university, he would be teaching people that would be teachers at other universities, and you know, the glass would grow. And it did. One of his earliest students was Dale Chihuly, who everybody in the world's heard of in some form. Famous Dale Chihuly with all his gardeny, swirly things. And Dale was maybe one of the wilder students, but everybody loved him. So Harvey knew if he could get Dale to be a teacher, all the students would love him, and Dale would teach them how to make not glass like him, but glass in their own way.
Right.
And so throughout these rooms, you see so many people who've Dale's touched their lives in some way. And then you add into it, all right, so they're sculptors, and you're saying, try this new material, and you got to get it 2,000 and 3,000 degrees hot. You can't get burned. You got to move it fast. You got to learn how to do it. But they each have a voice inside that has led them to do the kind of thing, maybe elaborate and floral, maybe spare, maybe geometric, like the one in the corner. And I think Dale did a lot to get them to make sure they brought their own voice out, which is why you see so much difference here.
Yes.
And even in the Dales that we have in the corner here, the first one is so different from the floral macchia pieces in the background. Anything, even he is finding a new voice in this. So a trip through these galleries is a trip through time and glass, and a trip through styles. And I'll tell you, it honestly is the most powerful sculpture being made in the late 20th and early 21st century.
Really?
More than metal, more than wood, more than stone. And we all know a lot of good artists that work in those materials,
Right.
but glass has surpassed it. And it's partly because of its malleability when it's hot, but it's also partly because other than line, shape, color, form, fifth, it's got light. So light is a component that a bronze sculpture doesn't get to use, a wood or stone sculpture doesn't get to use. So these guys have it edge up, and their work comes out better and more in touch with today, I think, and more vital.
The light. Okay, that's so interesting. I was going to say because it's fragile,
Well,
and it's one of a kind, and you have to be so careful.
All of that comes in
makes you
too.
more talented. Wow.
You're very aware. Last week we installed this, and when you handle these things, you're suddenly aware of the weight and the fact that if you sneeze, something's going to break.
Right.
And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, it's not your muscles that hurt, it's your tension, because you've been tense all day, not wanting to make any kind of mistake.
Yes, and so people can come through, they can walk, they can view it. You all have different exhibits that come in and out, but this one's a permanent one, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is, and
That's
there'll
exciting.
be regular tours of it. There'll be special talks. There'll be artists flown in to talk about their work. You'll get to meet them, and there'll be a offshoot children's program about how glass gets formed and all this kind of thing. So we're going to do a real big push with glass, and that's what I think is going to make us a Midwestern, anyway, center for glass.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Charles, for sharing this and all the nuggets and fun stories. That was so great.
Thank you.
And as you heard, this exhibit is here for a long time, but they will be switching out different glass pieces, and all of the other exhibits at the museum switch out continuously. So every time you come and visit, you will see something new. And we'll have information on how you can learn more about getting your tickets to the Art Museum. We'll be right back.